Look, I am an opinionated guy who tries to make funny videos about theme parks, and in particular, I like to use theme parks as a springboard to talk about pretty much anything and everything. This is my video, and it's about a theme park attraction about politicians, so naturally, it's going to contain some of my political opinions about those politicians and their politics. Honestly, at this point, it'd be weirder if it didn't. And besides, where the hell is the bar for being political anymore anyway? We live in an era when the president could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, and suddenly whether or not it's okay to shoot someone on Fifth Avenue would become a political issue. Hell, if we elected a president named Dr. Quincy J. Dogfucker III, and every day he publicly fucked a dog, I could say, hey, maybe it's wrong to fuck dogs, and about 10% of my commenters would be all, stop being political, OMG! Anyway, as always, I welcome respectful discourse in the comments, and God help me, I probably won't even be able to fucking resist engaging with some of it, but if you're only here to fling kindergarten grade insults and or generally be a condescending prick towards me and or your fellow commenters, that's not discourse, that's bullying. And just because half our government is apparently willing to put up with bullies doesn't mean I have to. Last I checked, you're still free to post your hateful horseshit on the 99.9999999999999% of the internet I don't control, so if your comment gets deleted from this video, it's your own darn fault. Enjoy! Let's just get this over with. Look at it. Look directly at it. Don't look away! Don't delude yourself! This is our reality! This is our world now! These are the soulless dead eyes reflecting the nightmare hellscape of the late 2010s back into the bottomless abyss of your horrified gaze! This is our base normality trampled on, pissed on, vomited on, and shoved up Roger Ailes' cold dead asshole! This is what you wanted, America! Drink it in! It took 35 years and it's in the wrong park, but Epcot finally built a Russia pavilion. It finally happened, folks. The first US president to defend Nazis, mock assault victims, endorse an accused pedophile, feud with a Gold Star family, commit millions in tax fraud, star in a Pizza Hut commercial, deny a 9/11 size number of American deaths, and stare directly into the fucking sun, finally achieved something when his animatronic was added to Walt Disney World's Hall of Presidents last December. They had one day of soft openings a week before Christmas with zero advance notice, and then it officially reopened the next day. Yeah, they didn't exactly give his supporters much of a chance to flock there for the big grand reopening. Thank God. And of course, as soon as it did open, the internet just couldn't stop talking about how shit the damn thing looks. And yes, even for Captain Covfefe, this thing is hideous. Every last Judd Apatowian joke about it has been accurate. Yes, it looks like a melted action figure. Yes, it looks like a 70-year-old Chucky doll. Yes, it looks like John Voight. If it's a John Voight robot with a copy of Mein Kampf on its bedside, would it pass the Voight-Kampf test? You're in a desert, walking along the sand, when all of a sudden you look down and see Mitch McConnell on its back. But most of all, yeah, it looks like they designed a Hillary Clinton robot and hastily added jowls and a different wig. That's probably exactly what happened. I feel like maybe it was an Emperor's New Clothes situation where they knew the fucker had no taste, so they presented it to him as the pinnacle of Imagineering achievement, and he was too proud not to sign off on it. I mean, to put this in perspective, in 2009 when they installed the Obama robot, or Robama as I like to call it, it took 6 months and it looked amazing. This took a year and it looks this. So why did it take a whole year? Well, apparently for a while there was some dispute over whether or not to even give the new robo-president a speech, since the speeches of his, let's be generous and say human counterpart, tend to be about as presidential as a Real Housewives wine fight. And reportedly, when they did finally offer him a speech, his handlers insisted on writing it themselves, with zero input from Imagineering. Gee, I can't believe the president whose own hand-picked staff finds him impossible to work with would be impossible to work with. Ultimately, I'm sure Disney knew they couldn't get away with not installing it. If they didn't acquiesce to his demands, he probably would have started a Twitter war against the place. And the MAGA heads would have tried to boycott Disney World, which, as far as I'm concerned, don't let the monorail hit you on the way out. But of course, these are the only presidents the mouse really cares about, and they really didn't want to risk losing the entire lucrative, deplorable demographic to Stone Mountain. Although the way they boycott, they'd probably buy 5 tickets to each park and then set themselves on fire in front of Philharmagic. And who's gonna clean that up? You? So they installed 45-bot like they were supposed to, and on its first day of operation, they had Orange County police officers at the ready just in case some shit went down. I mean, this is the robot who actively encouraged people to physically assault dissenters at his own rallies. They even added spikes along the edge of the stage, presumably to keep people from running up and strangling the idiot. But surprisingly, not a lot of shit has gone down in there since it reopened, aside from a couple of shouting matches.
Lock him up! Lock him up! Lock him up!
I hate how preachy the new season of This Asshole Show has gotten. So the deplorable-leaning agitators have been forced to take to Main Street to provoke the normies by hanging an enormous 2020 campaign banner over the train station balcony for a grand total of about 90 seconds before security chased them out of the park like the cowards they are. Because the dipshits who skywrite Jesus above the park every day just aren't invasive enough. You know, whenever there's been a massive White House scandal, prankish cast members have been known to play around with the Hall of Presidents a bit. During Watergate, someone put handcuffs on Robo Nixon, and during the Lewinsky scandal, someone put a condom in Robo Clinton's pocket. What are they gonna do to both sides McBaby prison here? What could they possibly do to capture the sheer towering magnitude of all his misdeeds? Set him on fire? Carve a swastika in his forehead? Drown him in Puerto Rican floodwater? Crazy glue a cat to his hand? Program Andrew Jackson to spank him with a magazine? Collect all the literal animal shit from Animal Kingdom and program it to spew out of his mouth? I mean, I'm just spitballing here. Now, normally, I have a strict personal policy against watching YouTube videos of new and updated Disney and Universal attractions, or at least American ones, before I've actually experienced them myself. I don't like spoilers. But this is not a spoiler, because there ain't no way I'm setting foot in that goddamn building again. I was never a huge fan of it to begin with, and as far as I'm concerned, even after he's out of office, the sheer stink of his wretched pig voice having emanated through that theater will be impossible to tolerate. Probably already smells like KFC grease and stale hooker urine in there. The whole building just gives off evil vibes now. Earlier this year, when the Maleficent parade float caught on fire, where did that happen? I refuse to believe that's a coincidence. I used to pride myself on the fact that there was no attraction at Disney World that I wasn't willing to go on. Yes, even Small World under protest. But congratulations, Mr. Horse in a Hospital, you have single-handedly put a fuck-ugly blotch on that permanent record. So instead, now that his constant teeter-totter between incompetence and monsterism has caused my pants-shitting terror panic from 2 years ago... Are you fucking kidding me, America?! To curdle into a fine simmering disgruntlement punctuated by the occasional rage storm, it's time to test my endurance and riff the shit out of this bitch. Strap in, folks, it's the new Hall of Presidents show, featuring President... Come on, you can do this! President You maniacs! Game over, man. Game over. You blew it up! Damn you! Can't sleep. Clown will eat me. Oh, God. Ow! God damn you all to hell! President Donald J. Trump! Well, this thing's a horcrux now.
This program is dedicated to the memory of Walt Disney. His love for America inspired the creation of the Hall of Presidents.
In other words, don't blame us for this. Our hands were tied. Blame the guy with his name on the resort. It's his world. We're just refurbishing it. As is tradition with the Hall of Presidents, we open with a film about the history of this wacky president idea.
A leader not born to power like a king or queen. A leader who has not seized power through conquest.
Just through name-calling, demagoguery, and an archaic electoral college system where you can get 3 million more votes and still lose. And I know that system was put in place to placate slave owners, but hey, at least it prevented a civil war until it didn't.
The people don't know exactly what a president will be, but there is little doubt who.
We all knew from the moment we saw his riveting performance in Ghosts Can't Do It. The film talks about George Washington and his doubts about the young republic.
He writes, "Integrity and firmness is all I can promise. Integrity and firmness."
Also, both names of magazines Trump has been spanked with.
Everything he does as president will set a model for his successors.
Really? Everything? Even owning slaves? For God's sake, don't give Trump any ideas! By the way, you might be wondering who they got to narrate such an illustrious attraction. Previous iterations have been hosted by such superlative legends of American culture as Maya Angelou and Morgan Freeman. But for Trump's Hall of Presidents, they made sure to bring out the real star power of the legendary, one and only, Joy Vandervoort Cobb. Yes, Joy Vandervoort Cobb, the voice actor so renowned she doesn't even need her own Wikipedia page. Who could forget Joy Vandervoort Cobb's exquisite performances as several assorted tertiary characters on the Lifetime series Army Wives, and that's pretty much it. Joy Vandervoort Cobb, the three doors down of narrators.
During the early years of the Republic, we choose leaders as different as Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Andrew Jackson.
Everyone from rich white men to wealthy Caucasian fellas to affluent honkies with penises.
Some call the presidency a glorious burden. Jefferson calls it a splendid misery.
Indeed, knowing that Trump is even more thoroughly fucking miserable than the rest of us has been the only thing that gets me through the day sometimes. History marches on and brings us to...
Civil War. 11 states secede from the Union.
Good thing we compromised with that electoral college, huh? Boy, we sure dodged a bullet and landed on a landmine there!
Lincoln had come up the hard way, on the American frontier, desperately poor.
Without even so much as a single 58-story skyscraper with his name on it in solid gold letters. Harsh.
With less than a year of formal schooling.
He had schooling? Pfft, elitist. Then a Lincoln animatronic pops up and recites the Gettysburg Address.
The last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain.
I like dead who don't die in vain. Why didn't these idiots just say they had bone spurs? Spoiler alert, the North wins and the 20th century approaches.
Millions of immigrants pour in from Europe and Asia. Population doubles.
That's why we're gonna build a wall in the middle of the ocean and make Aquaman pay for it.
Our economy triples. Our standing among nations rises.
For a while, anyway. Oh, sorry, that's just audio of the UN.
Social tensions are rising. A progressive movement is bubbling up, pushing for change.
I'm guessing they didn't tell Trump about this part.
And change is needed in the working and living conditions in cities.
Some of the workers were actually getting paid. It was a nightmare.
The gap widens between rich and poor. The demand for change grows stronger.
They definitely didn't tell Trump about this part. I know what you're thinking. This part must be a holdover from the Obama version, right?
Wrong.
They specifically added it to this version, presumably to trick the Trump-loving deplorables into sitting through overtly progressive rhetoric using Obama's campaign slogan. I knew there was a reason I like this company. I'd like them even more if they actually gave a shit about wealth disparity, but baby steps. Then it talks about Teddy Roosevelt and FDR, and is it just me, or are they trying to make all these other presidents sound a bit Trumpy?
Tall, lanky, some say uncouth, he speaks with force and vitality in clear terms that make colorful headlines. He speaks to us like a friend, a neighbor.
It's like the attraction is whataboutisming itself. Oh yeah? Well, Kennedy slept with porn stars too, and Harry Truman fell in love with Kim Jong-un too. No, really, they were secret lovers. He said so in his memoirs. Well, look harder! Then there's a montage of iconic quotes from every president from Eisenhower to Obama, with just 3 exceptions. No Nixon, no Ford, and no Bush Sr. Jimmy Carter gets more screen time in this thing than those 3 Republicans combined. And Reagan's just there to say, tear down this wall. Get it? Again, I think that's some deliberate shade being thrown towards our robot overlord and the party that just can't seem to stop licking his slimy toad. If Trump ever actually sees this thing, he just might start that Twitter war boycott after all.
Ladies and gentlemen, the presidents of the United States of America.
I'm sad alone in a boggy marsh, totally motionless except for her heart.
Then, as is custom, there's a roll call of all the presidents in chronological order, and... God, look how out of place he looks. He's surrounded by all these distinguished, stately faces, and he looks like he just wandered in from the shrimp buffet at a realtors convention. Millard Fillmore is definitely throwing some shade.
Abraham Lincoln.
What is this? What is this? What is he presenting Lincoln to us? He's trying to soak up some of the attention from Lincoln's legacy!
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you, for the first time as a couple, Mr. and Mrs. Bob Vance!
Well, it's good to know that robots are so advanced they can replicate human tackiness. That's just one more step closer to the robot uprising, and at this point, bring it on. Then Robot Washington gives a quick speech, and then Gallant gives the floor to Goofus.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
Oh, God! It looks even worse when it's talking! Ugh. Could we hear from the guy chanting "lock him up" a bit more? He had some interesting points.
To the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution.
Especially the First Amendment. I love the First Amendment so much I get people fired for exercising it all the time. The free press is the enemy of the people. It's embarrassing that we let people protest.
Of the United States. So help me God.
I hate to break it to you, but God's only son was a peaceful, homeless, wealth-hating Middle Eastern brown-skinned Jew who gave everyone free health care. I don't know who's been helping you, but it sure ain't him.
From the beginning, America has been a nation defined by its people.
Unfortunately.
At our founding, it was the American people who rose up to defend our freedoms and win our independence.
And it was the Russian oligarchs who rose up to hack it away from us.
It is why our founders began our great Constitution with 3 very simple words.
I can't remember what they were, but I'm pretty sure it was drain the swamp. No! Build that wall. No! Grab the Fake news, folks. Mueller's witch hunt. Bing, bing, bong. Shut up, Eric. But her emails. Trade wars. Good! Casinos aren't profitable. Yes, we cannot. You're the puppet. Zendaya is Michi. Klaatu Barada Nikto. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Wait, who's Melania? Thanos was right. Lock me up. Kanye's my California has just become one really large person. That's 8 words. 5 of them voted illegally.
Since that moment, each generation of Americans has taken its place in the defense of our flag.
A flag I've hugged more times than Don Jr., Eric, and Barron combined.
These are the achievements of the American spirit. The spirit of a people who fought and died to bring the blessings of liberty to all our people.
Yes, the blessed liberty to separate children from their parents forever and lock them in cages for being unlawfully brown. Are we great again yet?
Above all, to be American is to be an optimist.
The American dream is dead.
To believe that we can always do better, and that the best days of our great nation are still ahead of us.
Specifically, the day we put your entire cabinet on trial Nuremberg style. We'll have popcorn carts, t-shirt stands, dunk the deplorable booths, maybe a Ferris wheel if there's room in the budget.
It's a privilege to serve as the President of the United States, to stand here among so many great leaders of our past.
All things considered, I'm basically an overblown contest winner. I got a golden toilet. I got a golden shower from a whore. I got a golden toilet from the toilet store.
And to work on behalf of the American people.
Except for Muslims, Hispanics, black people, Democrats, the press, the intelligence community, kneeling athletes, comedians, Broadway actors, anti-fascists, Rosie O'Donnell, everyone who ever disagrees with me on anything, and everyone in Puerto Rico. Nazis are very fine people, though. And here's all the shitty things he said and did while I was editing this video. So, yeah, this speech is meaningless. Usually they try to inject at least something unique about each president's specific philosophies.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
No child will ever again be left out of the American dream.
We the people means all the people.
But Trump doesn't really think about things, and what few thoughts he does have aren't really Disney appropriate. So they just gave him the same cliched, platitudinous drivel that we've heard from politicians a million times. It's a lie. I mean, sure, everything in this park is a lie, and this speech is no exception. It's every bit as whitewashed and fraudulent in its depiction of Trump as Pirates was in its depiction of human traffickers. If the speech has any sort of unifying theme, and that's a big if, it's populism, or rather Trump's particular brand of faux populism. He says the word people no less than 6 times, but the people didn't elect him. And he doesn't even remotely try to represent us all. I honestly would have preferred a more typically batshit Trump speech where he'd mispronounce words and mock disabled people and yell at the Lügenpresse and whip out his robotic mushroom dick and blame absolutely everybody but himself, because that kind of shit will be his legacy. Not his occasional moments when he stuck to the prompter and paid lip service to the concept of being an adult. The new version of the Hall of Presidents is slightly better than I thought it would be, but it still does the worst thing it could possibly do with Trump. It normalizes him. But maybe in the grand scheme of things, Trump is more normal than we'd like to think. Seeing him up there among such robots as James Buchanan, Warren G. Harding, and about a dozen slave owners, we're reminded of how normal it is for overconfident, talentless, mediocre, sociopathic, Dunning-Kruger saturated rich white male assholes to get ahead in life for no good reason, and for more qualified people to be steamrolled over by lying, screaming loudmouths. It is normal. But it shouldn't be. I'm reminded of President Nixon, the only U.S. president to ever prematurely resign in disgrace. Nixon had a pretty good relationship with the Disney parks. As vice president, he dedicated the Disneyland monorail, and his infamous "I am not a crook" speech was given at Disney World's contemporary resort. And of course, Nixon was the sitting president when the Hall of Presidents first opened in 1971. 20 years later, Disney World's biggest competitor opened Back to the Future the ride, and its pre-show included this joke.
Looks like he dropped in on a speech by former President Richard Nixon. And boy, the doc looks awfully tempted to alter time.
Alter it how? Is Doc Brown an assassin? Was he the guy on the grassy knoll? Or maybe he went back in time even further and erased John F. Kennedy from existence?
Who the hell is John F. Kennedy?
I don't know. My point is this. By 1991, Nixon's legacy was so thoroughly tarnished, even big-ass e-tickets and family-friendly theme parks were perfectly comfortable dissing the bastard. And I have zero doubt that if we're lucky enough to survive this clusterfuck, Trump's name will be even more widely reviled in the eyes of history. We just gotta sit through a lot of this kind of bullshit first. The Hall of Presidents is an attraction about politicians that refuses to get political. And that paradox has made it such a weird relic of a bygone, practically forgotten era, before normality itself was irreversibly politicized. And honestly, that's exactly why I've never cared much for it. I've always preferred the American adventure in Epcot. Sure, it's every bit as corny and jingoistic, but at least it doesn't just talk about the 44 dudes who had enough resources to get this one job. It talks about the exceptional history-making citizens who have made and continue to make that job worth getting. And what about us? What about the American citizens watching this video right now in 2018? All of us trapped under a mountain of someone else's bullshit with seemingly no way out? How are we planning to make America less feverishly intolerable again? The answer should be obvious. If you can legally vote in the United States, please, for the love of God, vote blue on November 6th. Even if all that big stuff just doesn't matter to you, if you like my videos, could you please vote blue as a favor to me? And get as many friends and family members as possible to vote blue too. And if they refuse, that's all the more reason for you to vote blue and cancel one red vote out. If you need a ride, Uber and Lyft are offering free rides to the polls. If you're still not registered, some states offer same-day registration, so you might still have time. And if you are registered, you might want to check vote.org to make absolute sure of that. We're facing an uphill battle here, and it's not that hyperbolic to say the future of democracy itself is on the ballot. After the GOP won the House and Senate in 2010, they used census data to gerrymander pretty much the entire country. Compound that with voter rolls getting purged, minority voters getting disenfranchised, Trump holding rallies all the damn time because that's the only part of the job he likes, zero fucks given by this administration about those delightful Russian hackers, and of course Gropey McBeer-liker sitting on the Supreme fucking Court should have come to that again. The decks are stacked against the only party that can meaningfully challenge Trump. In 2016, Democrats got more votes, but Republicans still took both houses of Congress and the White House. Does that sound like democracy to you? Does that sound to you like we the people were really in charge last time? Literally, the only way to effectively fight against it all is to vote blue in such massive numbers that it cancels all that shit out. And that means we need everyone. And please don't waste time with third parties. I know you mean well, but the voting booth is not a personalized Spotify playlist that only affects you. We live in a hopelessly psychologically binary country where votes are cumulative, and no amount of artisanal self-importance will change that. I know that Democrats aren't perfect, but this stopped being about perfection a long time ago. If you demand nothing but perfection for the rest of your life, then by all means, go jack off 24/7 and see where that gets you. Despite what MTV tried to tell you in the 90s, voting is not always fun or empowering, and it's not really supposed to be. It's more like brushing your teeth. You don't do it because you want to, you do it to prevent, or in this case mitigate, disgusting catastrophes. The longer it takes for the Democrats to take back Congress, the worse and worse and worse this is all gonna get. If you think Trump's bad now, I shudder to think what he'll be capable of if and when he finally gets the hang of this job. It's not just about empty partisanship anymore. It's about making sure checks and balances are still an actual thing. In conclusion, Your Honor, I have a question for the Trump supporters who've already left a comment on this video after only watching a minute or two of it. What the hell are you complaining to me for? You voted for him. Even if you ignore everything else about him, you knew how profoundly divisive he was. You knew he was a bully. You knew his election was only going to split this country even further apart, and you still wanted it. And for what? To own the libs? To get petty vengeance because your racist coal mining grandpa felt threatened by his eroding relevance and was too proud to just get a fucking service industry job? Or perhaps you're one of those delightful frog-filleting sociopaths who think getting angry is the same thing as losing an argument. You think everything is a joke, but you're too lazy to think of your own jokes, so you voted for 4 years of jokes that write themselves. You keep accusing the left of being oversensitive censors, but apparently you're the ones with sensibilities too fucking delicate to just ignore videos like this without flinging petty insults at whoever makes them. You keep telling liberal entertainers to stay out of politics, but you love it when Kanye praises the game show host you voted for. The more I examine the real-world applications of modern conservatism, the more impossible it is to ignore that it seems to be based primarily in cruelty. What other conclusion is there to reach? You ignore women, ban Muslims, separate migrant families, dismiss the lives of black people, trample all over LGBT rights every last chance you get, paint all of the above as identity politics, like identity is something anyone can choose. And some people on your team don't even try to hide the cruelty anymore. For Christ's sake, the KKK was founded by Democrats, but nowadays they all vote Republican. How the fuck did you fuck that one up? But if we liberals say one fucking unkind word to you in retaliation to all this shit, suddenly it's all boo-hoo, the left was mean to me. Won't someone think of the civility? And we're done falling for it. We are 65,845,063 flavors of done putting up with your shit and your sorry excuse for a president's shit. We're not gonna get violent. I know some of the more extremist members of your party, including the president, try to paint us liberals as unhinged violent warmongers, even though you've got all the guns and we've got all the hippies. But we're not gonna get violent. Lord knows I'm not a violent man, and I for one don't really have nor want any power over anything beyond my own life and my own YouTube channel. All I have are my words. And for all its faults, this crazy old fucked up batshit glorious country is the only home I've ever known. And I can't just let what's been happening to it happen without speaking my mind about it, no matter how much it offends the guy in the Fuck Your Feelings t-shirt. So to all you Trumpers who clicked on this video just so you could helpfully inform me that I'm a virtue-signaling SJW beta-triggered libtard snowflake low-T soy boy new male NPC cuck, or whatever the hell buzzwords you're mindlessly regurgitating this week, thanks for the clicks, assholes. Sorry if I offended you.
We are the mediocre president.
Thanks so much for watching, folks. I'm not gonna lie, this was a rough episode to get through, in case you couldn't tell, and it was made possible by the very generous contributions to my Patreon. Special thanks to all my patrons, and huge special thanks in particular to Peanut B. Crunch, D. Tar, Ryan Enos, Max Fagan, Noah Fine, Wesley Fox, Michael Hamilton, Jacob Harris, Tom Hart, Houston Housley, Morgan Kellis, Nat Potter, Sydney Sumowitz, and Ed Vieira. Extra huge special thanks to Keith Baggs, super extra huge special thanks to Ryan Walterson, and super duper extra huge special thanks to executive producers Joe Goldmark, Edgar Barocho, and Landon McAfee. If I mispronounced anyone's name, please send me a message letting me know. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks again for watching. Please vote blue on November 6th, and don't let the bastards get you down.
At what point, then, is the approach of danger to be expected? I answer, if it ever reaches, it must spring from amongst us. It cannot come from abroad. If destruction be our lot, we ourselves must be its author and finisher. As a nation of free men, we must live through all times, or die by suicide. Neither let us be slandered from our duty by false accusations against us, nor frightened from it by the menaces of destruction to the government, nor of dungeons to ourselves. Let us have faith that right makes might. And in that faith, let us to the end dare to do our duty as we understand it.
Kanye's my ninja.